us today. It's really an honor to be in front of some animal lovers, all right, and to be working with you and making a difference in the community. Our two guests today are the one and only Yolanda Berkowitz with Friends of Animals Foundation. Do people call it FOA?
FoMA, Friends of Miami Animals.
Okay, FoMA. Yeah. Okay, that's
Friends
great.
Of Miami. It worked out really perfectly. One of the first things I did was go to Jacksonville to see FOJAX, to see their shelter, because they have a really good shelter, and it's similar, I think, in numbers, maybe. And I loved it. FoMA is so easy, and it's for Friends of Miami Animals.
Great. And Lorna and Lopez. It's okay if I do that and skip the middle name?
You can.
All right.
You can.
All right. From Animal Services of Miami-Dade County. So let's talk about the newest thing that's going to help people throughout the Miami-Dade County, and it is the Wellness on Wheels, the WOW Mobile Home. So mobile care. Who wants to talk about this?
I think we both can talk about
Lorna,
it.
Okay.
Please start.
So we're really excited, actually. We have this amazing new initiative that we have that we are launching on Tuesday, June 1st. And really this initiative came about because of FoMA and Yolanda and all of her board members and her donors and what they donated to Miami-Dade County. They donated a vehicle. I think you showed a picture of it, but it doesn't really do it justice for what we're going to be able to do.
It's hard to see, but people could go on to the site for FoMApets.org.
Yeah, absolutely.
And could see the WOW truck.
Yes, you can see it there.
Wheels. Okay.
So it's a veterinary clinic, on wheels. We call it the WOW Wellness on Wheels. And the whole purpose of it is to go into the community and to provide veterinary care for underserved areas. And so when we're talking about what an underserved area is, it's really based on accessibility to veterinary care. So we have pockets around the county where there are pet owners all over the county, of course, but their access to be able to get services, veterinary services for their pets, are limited because of either the number of clinics that are in a particular area or because of accessibility. They're just not able to get to those clinics. So the purpose is to go out into the community and provide these services.
So one of the things, Yolanda, that's become clear to a lot of us is that during this pandemic, that the county went and brought the services for the vaccine to the underserved areas. This is rings so true, for a lot of us that folks will come to you to take care of the animals because we know what happens to the animals, Yolanda, if they don't get care. Tell us what happens. What do the owners do with their pets then?
Well, one of the reasons that the WOW Mobile, I think, is going to be so important is because we want to keep animals out of the shelter. We want to keep pets healthy and with their families. Nobody needs to be surrendering a dog because the dog has some minor thing that could have been caught before it was too far along. Or a condition that needs medical care that they can't get diagnosed. So the WOW Mobile will provide routine vet care for families, and they will do referrals to vets when there are services that a pet needs that the WOW can't provide. It's only wellness services. It's vaccinations, it's nail trims, it's basic services. But it gives us a chance to get our hands on the pets, to give services to the community, which is what the agency should be doing. Animal Services is a county agency at the end of the day.
Now, Yolanda, you've been involved with helping four-legged critters for a long time. And before we get back to you, I'd like people to know about the community service that you've done to help so many families.
Thank you. In 2016, I became involved in animal welfare. And for 20 years before, I had worked with the Guardian Ad Litem program advocating for children in dependency cases, abuse and neglect cases. And I found the work so rewarding because it was very hands-on. You impacted a person or a family. And I'd done it for a very long time. And I thought it was time to get out of leadership and let somebody else step up and not overshadow everybody. Because, I can be, I'm driven and I am hard to, I don't disappoint easily. I just, my husband says no is just foreplay. So it's a little bit like that. And there was just such a need in an area that's so important because people love their pets. Families love their pets. A year ago, 2 years ago, the former director called me. A homeless man's van had caught on fire and his dog was in the van and he needed extraordinary medical care. I didn't even let him finish the sentence. Yes, take him to my vet, specialty clinic. Don't worry about it. The dog died after so much work. The gentleman came every night to visit his dog. Every night he showed up from wherever he was living. So People love their pets, and the shelter is where we get services. The shelter is where we get low-cost vaccinations, free spay neuter. Partnering with them, we're at the Underline the first Saturday of every month. Pause at the Underline. So the first Saturday of every month, the shelter is there. They're doing adoption events, they're doing vaccinations, doing microchipping. They're providing resources. So I know that I run off with the conversation all the time, but it all really ties together. You know, I'm involved in animal welfare. I find ways to be really effective with an agency that's important, and the community wants to support it.
And
I think if I could add to that
Yes.
as well, you know, Yolanda did such a great job. But the other thing that I would say that we also do is we also bring families together. We're able to keep families together, and we're also able to bring new family members into people's homes.
and I think that's important, Lorna, that pets are part of the family.
Absolutely,
And
they
certainly
are.
in the last 15 months, it's got so apparent where there's so many people that have adopted pets, which you could do at the animal services at any time, just about. All right.
Yeah.
And that we understand that it's an integral part of that. When you said bringing families together, absolutely. The kids, the mom's an arrogant father who doesn't care, but really does because the dog he sits on his lap.
Right.
And getting back, if we could, to Yolanda for a second. There are humane societies around the country, local ones. There's one in Miami-Dade, there's one in Broward. I understand that Yolanda was recognized and you're now on the Humane Society of the United States.
Yes, very exciting.
That is a big deal. All right, right?
It's
Grown
all-
out of
it's-
Miami. All right, so good for you.
You
Right.
know what? It's out of my wheelhouse because it's really all animals, and it's factory farming, and it's dog meat trade, and it's puppy mills. But it's really the front line. They're really seeing the ugliest of every aspect of animal welfare, and a lot of that translates to local ordinances and laws that change breeding. They just shut down breeding and sales of tegu and pythons. Do we need to be breeding and selling pythons and tegus when we're hunting them in the Everglades? We just put an end to that. So you were saying before, people are so much more aware. So I think HSUS is going to be really good. It's going to be a lot of work.
Yes.
But if there's anybody who can tackle it, it's Yolanda
And again-
Berkowitz, and that's
Oh,
for
sorry.
sure.
And congratulations to you, and you represent a lot
Thank
of
you.
fine people that are working with you.
I'm
So
very
let's talk
excited.
about animal services from the county. Right now, it's been designated a no-kill zone, which in and itself is sort of like a hard term to, but that's what it used to be 20 years ago. They
Yeah.
went there, odds were that your animal wasn't making out.
Yeah.
So what are the success rates now due to a lot of people's efforts?
So, I mean, the one area that, of course, I'm going to highlight is that what it means to be a no-kill shelter, right? And how difficult that accomplishment is for an open admission shelter. So, you know, across the country, you have shelters, but some of them are limited admission. We're an open admission, which, you know, means that we will take in any animal that comes to our doors for rehoming and for other services that they may need. So we've been able to accomplish that, and we've been doing it since 2015, where we've been able to maintain a 90% save rate for the animals that are coming in through our door, which is a huge accomplishment. And in addition to that, it goes beyond just, you know, getting animals out through our adoption programs, where, you know, it goes into what we're doing today and what we're talking about, the WOW, going into the community, educating our community about what it means to be a responsible pet owner. And as Yolanda was saying before, you know, people love their pets. These are their family members. And sometimes it's not so much that, you know, pets are overlooked in their homes. Actually, you know, most people prioritize their pets, as this homeless person did, as, you know, the story that Yolanda mentioned, but they just don't have access. So what Animal Services has done in the last 20 years is that, you know, the model and the way of thinking changed in animal welfare. And I got to say, we were at the forefront of that. And looking at how
Yes.
instead of being a place where you come to perhaps, you know, surrender a pet, but becoming a place of resources and becoming a place for the community to get help when they need it. And whether that help is in the form of sterilizing a pet so that it doesn't continue to run away if it's in heat, or whether it comes in the form of getting a pet microchipped so that if it gets lost, we can easily reunite the pet with its owner, or whether it comes from providing, you know, basic veterinary care through initiatives like the WOW. You know, and I keep going back to the WOW because it's such a special project to us. It really is. You know, we're located in Doral, but Miami-Dade County is huge, right? And we know that there's pets in almost every, you know, in a large percentage of our residents' homes. So being able to engage with the public is also so important, so that we can establish a relationship with them, and so that it goes beyond animal services. It goes into the community, and it goes into having, accessibility to the right types of
And great
care.
lessons for our children. We take them there and you get those.
Absolutely.
So Yolanda, maybe, how many cats are wandering through our streets, more or less?
Lorna can address this. The number that I use, because it's a number I was given, is between 400 and 500,000 community cats living on the streets. So the answer to that is, if there are cats in your neighborhood, contact the shelter, get some help trapping these cats, having them sterilized. They need to be returned to where they live, because colonies are very insular, I guess. I'm not a cat expert, but I know that moving cats from colony to colony leads to fights and injuries and all sorts of things. But talking about open admission shelter, talking about a 90% live release rate, as long as animals keep reproducing, those numbers are going nowhere. So
Absolutely.
I think that animal welfare, we're doing a lot of pet retention. The shelter had a challenge retention. So
what does that mean, pet
that
retention?
means, so the shelter gets called, in layman's terms, the shelter gets called, some guy's got his dog outside, the dog has no shelter, blah, 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 blah. They go out, they can give him a fine, give him 30 days or whatever the law says, and walk away. But now they have the ability to give him a dog house, or to help him get vet care if they see that the dog needs to be sterilized. So they get to try to keep an animal where it's living.
Right.
If it's not in danger, if it's not injured, if it's getting food and water, and if it's got some shelter. So a dog house, which seems like a very basic thing. So I think animal welfare has to change. More spay neuter, obviously, but pet retention is really important, really, really important.
So what it says is, the pet owner that wants to give up the animal or gets a ticket, is they don't look at the county as of the bad guys that's going to impose more grief on them. They give them a chance to go on pause for a minute. Somebody else cares. Right?
Somebody else cares. Absolutely.
A few weeks ago, we had a mental health advocate here, and he had an episode about 10 years before, and he wrote a song and he sang it here, and he had guitar as well. And it says, "You are not alone." And so it's at times like this when somebody could get a ticket and say, no, instead of getting a ticket, here's what we can do for you. Hold on to that pet. And so we understand that the volunteers that are out there in front of the center help keep the death rate down a lot by being able to rehab these, being able to help the people. And I know that sometimes you move pets around the country. How does that work?
Sure. So
we do it differently.
We do it differently. So we can both answer that question. But, going back to what you were mentioning about the volunteers, right? And the free roaming cats, right? We have a group of volunteers that go out into the community, that go out, they help us trap cats. We bring them in, we provide those trap, neuter, vaccinate, return program, and they go back into the community. So we are working with our community hand in hand in solving the problem that we have in the community.
You have some super trappers, don't you?
We do. We call them power trappers. We do.
And what are their numbers? This is crazy. These are volunteers who go out, and to trap a cat, I mean, it's not that easy to do.
Right.
You can set a trap for a night for 5 days running and nobody goes in it, or you get a possum, or you get a raccoon. It's really awful. Do you know the numbers? Because I ran into someone I was introduced.
We have some trappers that have done over 1,000 trappings in a year.
Wow.
I mean, think about it.
The impact that these trappers are making is huge
really
when you think of
important.
the number of litters that they can
That's the
have.
caddy program.
Right.
So you do it slightly different?
Well, no. I mean, this is she was talking about the population of cats on the street and volunteers. This caddy program of volunteers is making a huge difference in cutting down that cat population.
So you can call the county. They have volunteers that go out, trap them, take them to animal services. You'll fix them up, so to speak, clip their ears.
Yep, and then they return
check
them.
them out.
And that helps with that number that Yolanda was talking about. But when we were talking about transports, that's yet another program that we do. So what our transport program does is that we have partners throughout the country that where they may have, believe it or not as desirable pets as we do have in Miami, or they may just have additional outlets for those pets. So what we do is we work with them on selecting animals that have been at the shelter for an extended period of time. So these are the animals that have been overlooked by the local community for adoptions, or they've been overlooked by our local rescue partners. So we work with these other shelters and these other rescues, and we actually bring the animals to them. We go ahead, we provide all the veterinary care that they can. And sometimes what we lovingly call that Miami mutt, that is a mixture of a lot of different dogs.
Miami special.
Right? They actually have a better chance of getting adopted in other communities, because in other communities, their shelters are filled with another type of dog. And so it's not new and exciting to, their population. So we do work with them. We have a great success with them, and it's a wonderful program.
A few years ago, Carol Vega, you might know Carol, I see that she's driving across the country to take a dog somewhere. I go, you doing what? Yeah, somebody wants his dog. So I'm driving from Miami to Los Angeles area.
It's crazy.
And I couldn't quite get it. I do now,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what the old story about the scorpion, that's what people do, all right, is try to help these animals. If we could get back to the trapping, I know there's some people that want to trap the cats themselves, but we know cats are pretty smart. And if they hear that thing going down, they stay away.
Right.
So we were in the trap, catching them around our property years ago. And so all the cats knew what we were doing, all right? So our cat would go in there and eat and wait for us to come and open it up. We'd go out. It was just wild. And they just sit there, okay, we'll open it up.
That's good. That's funny.
So
crazy.
So Yolanda, so tell us what caused you to be really involved in this? What triggered in your brain and said, this is what we're going to do?
I called the mayor. He set up a meeting with himself, the chief of staff, the former director, and I don't remember who he had with him. And it just seemed like an area where I could make a difference. It seemed an area where I have access, where I could bring some resources. I knew serving underrepresented populations, because foster kids, like, nobody wants to hear about foster kids because it's sad. Nobody wants to hear about dogs and cats dying or animals dying because it's sad. And I love it. I really enjoy working with the shelter. I have seen them. I also saw an opportunity. It was a brand new shelter they were opening, and the mayor was supportive of my work. I'm like, oh, it's a home run for me. I mean, I'm walking into, we can go nowhere but up. The day they moved out of the shelter, they granted me access. I had 2 professional videographers follow the shelter throughout the day. And the footage is dark and dank and awful. So I got very lucky that I came in at a time that some changes were really happening, and it's become a model shelter. I've had Wings of Rescue. You were talking about transport. That's a nonprofit that flies animals out of natural disasters or high kill communities. There are communities in Florida that have to kill all their dogs or almost all their animals they get in, because they don't have fosters, they don't have a budget, they don't have a facility
or programs.
So in some place in Florida, these animals get moved out to other shelters. So Wings of Rescue flies animals out of high kill shelters and natural disasters, the volcano in St. Vincent, the hurricanes in the Bahamas, the floods in Texas, fires on the West Coast. They have partner shelters that have space, so we don't displace any animals. We don't make, if I'm personally moving dogs, the first thing I ask my shelter partners is, what kind of dogs do you have? Do you have a lot of bully breeds? Because I don't want to send them my bully breed, and then their dog that's been there for 4 or 5 months has a competitor, if you will.
Right.
So transport is a delicate thing. The shelter does it on an institutional, organizational basis. They have shelter partners. There's protocols that they follow. But it's a nationally recognized way to save lives. And believe it or not, there are lots of shelters that have room. So all of those programs and all of those efforts, and the volunteer program, because and fosters, because you get to know animals and you get to know their personalities, are easier to promote that way.
It looks like the psyche of people that know, that live here in Miami-Dade, understand that it's changed from the old days, which we didn't want to even think about what was going to happen to that dog, when back then it was the dog catcher.
Right.
Now there's a high probability that something positive is going to happen with that animal when it gets caught. So instead of it being too bad, that he got rescued.
Well,
right?
I would agree with that statement, but I think that there's still work to be done when it comes to messaging and about having the community learn more about what we do. And I got to say that partnerships like FoMA definitely help us get that messaging out there. It's not just the county saying like, this is what we're doing and these are the programs that we're offering, but it's community stakeholders like Yolanda Berkowitz, like the board members of FoMA, that help support the mission of the work that is getting done in the shelter. And without network partners like them to help us get the word out, it's just us doing the work. But if nobody knows about the work or nobody knows about the need, then we're still going up against a wall, right?
I know there's no other organization like FoMA, but there are other people that are actively involved. Maybe they're the Doberman Club or the Pitbull Club or whatever.
Yeah.
So what are some of those other organizations that take a keen interest in trying to help placement of your animals?
I would say that it goes beyond just our rescue partners. It's also our fosters. It's our volunteers. It's the individuals in this community who care and have a passion about the work that is getting done.
I say, and I've said it often, in order for someone to be a hero, there has to be a villain. And so very frequently the shelter is the villain. People send me direct messages and Facebook and text and whatever about an animal in need. And, if you have a neonate kitten that has to be fed every 2 to 3 hours and you can't do it, then take it to the shelter where at least they have a chance. Oh, I don't want to take it to the shelter. They're going to kill it. So what are you going to do? If you see a dog hit by a car on the street, take it to the shelter. At least it'll get pain meds. It'll get looked at it's a resource. And I think as long as the community sees the shelter as the enemy, sees the shelter as not being a part of the community. So a lot of what I like to do and what we've been doing is bringing the shelter into the community and the community into the shelter. And
let's look at the young people who obviously are going to have more exposure over the years than other folks. What is the county animal services doing so we can introduce these type of things of, listen, here's what happens to pets, all right? And here's what we can do to try to keep them out of the shelters.
So, one of the ways that we do outreach is through Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So we have curriculum that we have developed, and they teach this curriculum about responsible pet ownership, about the issues that we have in the county that involve our animals, like an overpopulation of, dogs or cats that are continuing to have litters that end up coming into the shelter, and how these animals don't necessarily have homes. So we do work with Miami-Dade County Public Schools. They go through this curriculum at different grade levels. And I think we start with the kids, right? Like when we were kids, did everyone wear a seatbelt? Did everybody recycle? Probably not, right? But now it's almost unheard of to get into a car without wearing your seatbelt. So that's where we start. And we're trying to start with younger school-age children, developing that curriculum. We've already going into high schools as well. So it's continued messaging that we're putting out there. And then, of course, helping the public and knowing, with all the different campaigns that we run throughout the year so that the community is aware of what are the issues that are impacting our community. And as Yolanda was saying, animal services and the work that we're doing, it's a community issue. It's not just a county issue. It's not just a department issue. It's something that impacts everybody's lives. And it impacts people that have pets and people that don't have pets either.
I want to share the story with, I think I've told some of you before, but there's this mixed pit bull. He comes in my yard. It's a couple of years ago and just sits down. He's tail wagging. Okay, so I go get him some water. All right. He sits down on the front patio. Okay. I can tell he's hungry. So I feed him. All right. He's there. He won't go away. All right. He comes over to me, wagging and everything. So I'm going, whose pet is this? All right. And I'm checking through the neighborhood. And then one afternoon, he's there. So I'm feeding him. All right. So I get in my car to leave. He runs after me. So, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I'm calling everybody. Please help me with this dog. Friendly. And he'd been in plenty of fights. You could see that. I said, I'm going to go for a walk. Let's see what he does. I start walking down the street. He looks in the gate next door and he runs home. So
he was working you. He was working you for a little.
He was. He did a very good job.
That's what we call return in the field.
Right.
So that's what we call return to field.
It was so rewarding. And as I tell the story, I go, and I cared enough to try to do something. I plastered his picture, but it was really nice to see that. Can we talk again about
The WOW Mobile.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
But listen, that's the point. The point is you cared to do something. So everyone in the community, when you see a problem with the dog, when you see a problem with the family, when you see litters on the street, I mean, pick up the phone and call. There are resources available. We are happy to be a resource. FoMA Pets at fomapets.org. We're happy to be a resource. Our volunteer and donation form, or our volunteer and foster form, actually links. I mean, they fill out a form for us and we get it to the shelter so that they can process. So if everyone gets involved, it really makes a difference.
So people can call either one of you. They can get their animal chipped. They get licensed. They can get the shots.
Yes, absolutely. They can get wellness vaccines. They
At
can
the
get
WOW Mobile?
At the WOW Mobile.
Again,
Right.
they can be able to do that.
Yes.
Full service, full routine
kidding.
services.
Yeah.
So you're
Vaccinations,
going to
nail
these
trim.
underserved areas and say, bring us your pet.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I remember seeing on some TV show that the lines would be forever, right? And
Well, we're really hoping that this program is successful. We're hoping we're going to get out on the street. They're doing a lot of canvassing. Remember, they're staying in Miami Gardens. They're staying in an area where there are no vets. So it's getting the word out and getting people to take their pets in.
so Yolanda, share with us how this happened financially.
So financially, we were very interested in doing a high volume spay neuter clinic, a mobile one. We wanted to do a clinic that can go into communities with too many pets on the street and sterilize. We got involved with the foundation to do it. It didn't work out. We bought this vehicle because we really wanted to do the project. And one of my board members really didn't want to lose the vehicle. So we got the vehicle and then realized that it wasn't a high volume spay neuter. So we had the shelter, I think Kathy and Alex came out, maybe one of the vets. We went to look at it and they said, we can do a mobile clinic. Of course, when I said, let's do a mobile vet clinic, they looked at me like, are you crazy? That doesn't work in any community. Nobody shows up for it. You can lead a horse to water. But we're going to make it happen. So we bought the vehicle and then we gave them, we created a grant that we would give them $500,000 to run the first year and the county would commit to years 2 and 3. Took it to the commission. They approved it. We have an agreement with them. So we're funding the first year for $500,000, and then years 2 and 3, the county will fund it. Now the goal is to really make it successful so that we're providing services to the taxpayers who need the services who are getting funded. So that's how that got funded. We did it.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I've seen Dr. Mark Kramer. I remember when he would go out there and I'd see the line over at Chuck Wagon area over there. And I follow Mark all the time on Facebook. And
is he still working? Because
he travels everywhere. Where are you, Mark? Come back.
He's traveling. So we're hoping to eventually do some of that. And I think you have the ability. You have a mobile unit, but it only does small animals.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about, if we could, we have 3 minutes left. June is National Adopt a Shelter Cat. Not just a cat, a shelter cat.
A shelter cat.
So what does that mean, Lorna?
It means that we have a lot of available kittens and cats available for adoption.
We do have one coming up right now.
Yeah.
Can we hold the cat for a second?
Lorna.
Yeah, I will.
Lorna.
So we have a lot of really cute cats.
Here comes a really cute kitty cat available for
Tiny.
adoption soon.
Soon, not yet.
So this is actually, this is one of our little neonates that came into the shelter, was too young. And of course we had one of our staff that is, not to necessarily charge with caring for animals, but she stepped up to, give that around the clock care that Yolanda described earlier
Have you ever done
today.
that? Every literally,
They're
you have to
babies.
set your clock and get up every 3 hours and feed the cat.
And how old was this? What was the size of this little guy here?
I would say he's half of what he was now. I would say she was about 3 weeks old or 4 weeks old when she came in.
So
Almost
kitten
3 weeks old.
cuddlers, kitten cuddlers,
Kitten
are
cuddlers.
the
Kitten
volunteers
cuddlers.
that take the neonates home. And the shelter has a really nice population of them. I can't believe it because it's really extraordinary work. But they have a dedicated team called kitten cuddlers.
And anybody can volunteer for
I mean,
that, by
can you
the way.
believe this? To save
So,
a life.
yeah.
And if they want to volunteer, they can go on the website.
They can come on our website. We teach them how to care for these little tiny guys. We provide all of the supplies that they would need to care for their litter or their 1 or 2 neonate kittens that would come in.
Cute.
And then once the kittens, we provide all the veterinary care for them as well. And then once the kittens are ready to be placed for adoption, then they come back to the shelter and we put them through our adoption floor, some of our satellite adoption centers, or transport even. So
Great. We're going to wrap it up here, but I would
Wrap
like
it up.
Yolanda, who's been a tremendous volunteer throughout the community for many years. There's some young person that's watching this right now and is looking for some guidance and some direction. So you got 1 minute. Give it to them.
So,
which camera? Right over there.
1 minute, message me through FoMApets.org. And I promise you, there are so many volunteer opportunities. There are so many things you can do in the community, virtually or digitally or any which way. All you have to do is do it. Just pick up the phone and call. Just do it, as Nike says. Just do it. So there are so many ways to get involved. And I'm particularly interested, we talked about young people. I find the energy and the empathy and compassion of 20-something-year-olds, 30-something-year-olds, which is young to me, really inspiring. And I'm going to capitalize on that.
By the way, that's why we have Howard over
We're
here.
going to bring him into the fold.
All right. So anyway, congratulations
Thank
thank
you
you for doing that, and you've made a difference.
Thank you.
So Lorna, people are looking at you and say, maybe I want to volunteer at the county, at the animal services. So what could they do?
they can go to our website, www.miamidade.gov/animals. There they can just click on the tab that says Ways to Help. And there you'll find all of the programs that we offer so that you can come and help the shelter. Sometimes it's volunteering at the shelter. Sometimes it's by fostering. Sometimes it's by feeding some kittens and walking some of the dogs that we have. So, there's all sorts of opportunities. And even if you're too young to volunteer at the shelter, there's ways to help. So, we are always looking for assistance in helping us care for these little ones. And sometimes the assistance comes in ways that you may not have thought of. But the best way to find out how to help the shelter is just to reach out.
Wow.
We need baby blankets for the kittens right now.
Oh, see, that's
Oh, you
great.
do?
So, yeah. That's
So
a
we need
good way.
baby blankets.
Baby blankets. We have a wish list for them, actually.
Yes, we do.
That I can
We
have her
do.
take a look at, the
So
neonate.
we're going to wrap it up again.
Thank you
so
so
this
much
is
for
Thank you.
having
Yolanda
us.
Berkowitz with Friends of Miami,
Miami
Animals
Animals
Foundation and Lorna Lopez from Animal Services, Miami-Dade
Thank you.
County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you
And
to
Howard,
our
thank
community.
you. Folks, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time and have a great day.
Bye.
Holiday
Bye.
weekend.